turn in your book to the 10 fundamentals of living health. By the way, that's what I call what I live. I call it living health. Because after I learned these tools, I started saying, what am I going to do for 30 days to see what can happen in my body? What would I give myself, not just take away? So if you'll turn to page 21, we'll look at the first step of these 10 steps. I'm going to give you 6 gifts, and I'm going to point out 4 poisons that must be eliminated. If you'll give yourself these 6 gifts, eliminate these 4 poisons, you will give the cells of your body what they need. You will be able to eliminate, and you'll have the nutrients that you need as well. We'll make it really simple. So let's do it. So point number 1, the first key to living health, we call on page 21, the gift. You must give yourself the gift of vital breathing, vital breath. Give yourself the gift of vital breath, vital breathing. Now, what does this mean? Well, let me ask you a question. How long can a person go without food? Many of you thought hours till you got to this program. How long can you go without food? Days, not days. Months. Human body can last months without food. How long can you go out without water? Days. How long can you go without air? Minutes. Brain cells die in anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes. Liver cells can last 2 or 3 hours without oxygen. That's how important it tries to preserve. But we're talking minutes, basically, for your brain. It's the most important part for most of us, at least to be conscious about it. So what we've got to do is we said here that the number one thing of health, what health really is a sense of vital force, also known as what? Known as what? Energy. And we've said energy is created at the cellular level, and what the cells need in order to stoke those fires, have energy, have ATP to create that spark, is lots of what? Oxygen. So any health program you're going to study that starts by talking to you about food is way off base. Because the very first thing, the element of life, is oxygen. And so what determines how much we get? Well, lots of things determine it, but the number one force is the way you breathe, which most people don't do anymore. Because most people in industrialized nations no longer breathe. One, because they want to look a certain way and never extend their abdomen, which means they never get full oxygenation. But also, number 2, because we live so stressed, most of us are in these tight-chested, upper, visual type breathing states. Few of you have learned to relax and be a little kinesthetic and have the full breath, right? But it's there. So I want to point a couple things out very quickly here. First of all, how many have heard about chronic fatigue syndrome, another wonderful syndrome that we have out there? Syndrome means we don't really know the source. We've got a zillion sources of it, right? Chronic fatigue syndrome comes from a lot of different places. It comes basically the cells are not getting the nutrients they need. There's too much toxicity in the system, and there's not enough what? Oxygen. So there's a great medical doctor. I don't agree with everything he does because he's still caught up in some of the old model, but I want to make sure you know about him. So if you know a friend who's got this fatigue syndrome, the first thing you should look at is that they don't have a compelling future. Psychologically, they're not looking forward to anything. And the second thing you should notice is that they're not getting oxygen. They're living a lifestyle that does not give them oxygen. So one of the things that he talked about is all these people have all these heart disease problems, they think, and they really don't have a heart problem. They have a breathing problem. So he said shallow chest breathing, he relates to, as being the number one force that he's documented to create fatigue in people. Now, I don't think that's the only force, but it's certainly a strong one. So you'll see a couple of the key triggers that he talks about here. First of all, he says, according to Dr. Saul Hendler, in the oxygen breakthrough, without ATP, our bodies would immediately shut down, and without oxygen, there'd be no ATP. It's clear then that optimal oxygenation of your cells through proper nutrition, fluid intake, exercise, and stress management is absolutely necessary to maintain your health. Here's what happens when you got shallow breathing, though. And why do you care about shallow breathing? Because the cells that take in the most oxygen and absorb in your body are deep diaphragmatic breaths in the abdomen. Most people, think about when you're stressed. Think of a time when you're really stressed, honestly. Think of a time. What was your breathing like? How many found that you either stopped breathing or was very shallow? Say aye. One of the reasons you're stressed is you don't have no oxygen. That'll create a bit of stress. But people then develop the habit of breathing this way all the time. So here's some shallow breathing results. Number 1, it'll give you chronic or intermediate fatigue. Number 2, it can give you chest pains and palpitations, and you may think you have heart disease, which a lot of people get treated for when they just have poor breathing patterns. Thirdly, the doctor says that tingling and numbness in the arms and legs more often than not is triggered by the breathing pattern than it is a heart problem. 4, muscular cramps in the neck and shoulders. 5, you got gas You got stomach upset, you got heartburn. A big place is not having any oxygen. The way you breathe. Feelings of unreality or hallucinations, panic attacks. When someone has a panic attack, watch them. They're not breathing diaphragmically. They got a little tight breathing up here. They don't get enough oxygen. And nightmares and night sweats are also affected by this. Turn the page if you would. The richest blood flow is in the lower lungs. The richest blood flow is in the lower lungs. Because we don't adequately ventilate ourselves with air and oxygen, we don't have enough energy. So as simplistic as this sounds, what we want to do is learn how to breathe more effectively. So there's a ratio of breath I want you to use. It's going to be the first gift you're going to give yourself daily. And you're going to do this 3 times a day. You're going to take in deep diaphragmatic breaths in the following ratio, in the notes there. You're going to do 10 of these breaths 3 times a day. You're going to inhale by the ratio of 1. So for example, you might inhale 10. You're going to hold the breath for 4 times whatever you inhale. So if it was 10, you'd hold for 40. And you're going to exhale for 2, which is 20. Now, why are we doing this? You're concerned about your immune system? Let me give you the most important information about your immune system that you can know. And what's great about it is it's so simple. There have been a whole series of researchers, lymphologists, who've studied the lymph system. Now, again, what does the lymph system do? It is the sewage system of the body. The way in which your body stays healthy is as these cells throw out their waste, the lymph system circulates, takes it out, and eliminates it. There's a slight problem with the lymph system. You got 4 times more lymph than you have blood, but there's no pump for the lymph system. In other words, your blood has the heart. There is no pump. The only way that lymph moves is by your physical movement, like exercise, or deep diaphragmatic breaths. It's the only way it moves. In fact, there are a group of Indians, American Indians, that when they're older and they feel like they're being what's the word that they use? Feeling like they're draining the tribe of its energy, or they feel like their life is over. Their tradition is to go and tie their hands above a tree by themselves and go to sleep. And guess what happens? They die between 24 and 48 hours. Because what happens is all the lymph can't circulate because there's no movement. There's very, very shallow breathing, extremely shallow. You usually go to sleep during that time. And what happens is all this poison, just remember I said 7 billion liver cells, 7 billion liver cells, 7 billion liver cells. Well, all that stuff just starts to build up until the biochemistry, the blood that your cells are surrounded with, becomes so polluted that the bioelectrical energy gets broken. The pattern gets broken. Cells shut off, and they die of their own toxicity, their own waste. That's how they kill themselves. So what Dr. Jack Shields, a lymphologist from Santa Barbara, did is he went out and he put cameras inside the bodies of people as they did various things to see what would stimulate the most cleansing. What Dr. Jack Shields did is had people yelling, arguing, talking quietly, running, exercising. And what Dr. Jack Shields found was that a deep diaphragmatic breath, you can literally see in this camera work, sucked the lymph up into what's called the thoracic duct, and it stimulated the lymph flow in your body. In other words, the cleansing of your bloodstream by as much as 10 times what happens to normally during normal sitting around, moving around activity. 10 times. It was the equivalent of metaphorically taking a vacuum cleaner to your bloodstream and sucking all the poison out. That's the power of a deep diaphragmatic breath. Now, why do we have this ratio of 1, 4, 2? Because you want to pull the breath in, you want to hold it, and as you keep the breath in, it makes the body really accept it. It really pushes the oxygen, you really oxygenate. And why are you double the exhale what you inhale? Because you want to make sure you what? One of the ways to get rid of waste is by exhaling. You want to make sure you get all the toxicity out. So this is a major stimulating breath. Now, if you do this, as simplistic as this sounds, this is like the #1 gift you can give yourself. I promise you, I'm going to ask you to do these gifts I'm giving you for 10 days as a minimum, 30 days minimum as ideal, but a minimum 10 days. And you don't tell me if you don't feel a huge change in your energy, not only energy, but how good you feel, because all of a sudden your lymph is being cleansed constantly. Step number 2, we said, how long can you go without food? How long? Months. How long without air? How long without water? Yes. So if we thought about it and we wanted to be smart, we'd say the second gift you got to give yourself is the gift of living waters and live foods. Live. I'll give you a little phrase. You want to be alive? Eat live foods. Not a bad approach to it, right? That's how it works. Now, let me give you a good example of this first. Tell me something. Let's you and I, again, step into my common sense corner over here. Common sense. Forget everything else we've been taught. Let's just use common sense. 80%, 75 to 80% of the Earth's surface, let's say 70 to be conservative, 70% of the Earth's surface is covered with what? 75 to 80% of your body is made up of what? What do you think a large percentage of your diet should contain? Water. And I don't just mean drinking water, although you must drink. I'm also talking about natural waters that have vitamins and minerals in them that can only be found in live foods. It's really simple. You want to be alive, you got to eat live foods. You see anybody who's got a lot of energy, focus, I guarantee you they're not living a devitalized life. You can't take these dead substances without your body using an immense amount of energy to convert it and reconvert it. It takes a lot less energy when it's already alive. Body can just use it immediately. Plus, it's more cleansing to the system. Some things are very clogging. So I want you to take a little test with me, if you would. There in your notes on page 23, what I want you to do is I want you to write down everything that's passed your lips, and I don't want to use the last 24 hours because the last 24 hours, in fact, the last 3 days probably is not a good example of what normally passes your lips because most of you have a lot more passing your lips in a day-to-day process. So how many of you can remember last Thursday, can you remember last Thursday? How many can remember last Thursday where you were, what you were doing on that day? It was the day before the seminar. How many can remember that? Great. Here's what I want you to do. Write down everything that passed your lips during that 24-hour period of time. Everything. Everything. That includes, for example, anything you drank. That includes anything you ate, includes snacks. That includes any drugs you're taking that the doctor prescribes or drugs you're taking that no one prescribes. Okay? Keep writing. Okay, let's find out. Here's what I want you to do. Look at your list, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to circle everything on your list that has the live natural water still in it. Now, beer does not count. That is not live natural water because it's got the product of decay built into it. Fermentation, right? So we're not talking about beer, and milk does not count. Okay, I'm talking about real foods. I'm basically talking about real foods with real natural waters, unadulterated. So for example, it'd be fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit juice, fresh vegetable juice, right? Coffee, that is not natural water even slightly. Oh my gosh. Somebody said, what about rice? Let me ask you a question. How much water is there in rice? Let me help you with this. Here's a steak. Here's a watermelon. Which one do you think has a bit of live water in it? Good clue, okay? So only circle those things that truly have their live waters in them. Go ahead and do that real fast, and then look up. Does water count? Water would count. Soup? Could, if it's vegetable soup, I guess. Cooked vegetables would be okay, but I would go with something closer to live. Just do it real quick. And now here's the question. What I want to know is, how many of you in this room right now, your diet reflects nature? Nature is 70% of the earth is water, 70, 80% of your body's made up of water. If I took all the water out of your body, we could put your body in a little bag about this big. You're mostly water. That's a fact. So how many of you then, does it make sense that 70% of your diet should be water rich in nature, water content type of foods? Yes or no? Great. Raise your hand if your current diet is 70% water content. Look around the room how small it is. Now, why would you want to have a water-rich diet? Because water is absolutely critical to life. It is the number one solvent. It's basically what all these things in your body are made up of that transport things like blood. It is something you have to have. It's only below oxygen in its nutrient value and importance. It is the medium of the body. You can lose lots of other things, but you can't lose too much water and stay alive. So water is critical. And it's the number one source to cleanse the body. And cells need what? They need oxygen, they need nutrients, which water helps them to get, and they need to cleanse. And without the water, you don't cleanse. You clog. And then you got major problems. How many of you in this room have 50% water content? Very small. How many of you have 25% water content? Okay, here's the real one. How many of you have about 15% water content or less? Raise your hand. Nice and high. 70% of your diet should consist of water-rich foods. This allows your body to cleanse itself And failing to consume this percentage of water means you're clogging the body, not cleansing it. Now, most of you are the next category. A typical American diet consists of only about 15% water-rich foods. 15% water content in my diet is suicide. Suicide. Because what you are doing every single day is you are clogging your system day by day, and then you're going to have problems. You're going to call it aging. What it is you've been clogging your whole life. And it's just building up more and more and more so you're not getting it. I want you guys to get it. You must change your diet so it has more water content. You go, well, Tony, how do I do that? Well, think about it. So easy. What if every meal from now on, you always have a salad with a meal, number one? What if number two, you drink water before a meal, before the meal, so you don't overeat? Because how many find if you drink a lot of water, you don't feel quite so hungry? Let me see your hands. Say, aye. Let me tell you the first secret. You feel starved? First secret, breathe. Try it right now. You want to make a habit of doing this breathing. Not even just the ones where you hold it, but where you exhale, where you just take deep breaths in. We just don't do this anymore. Second thing you do when you're hungry, drink some water. This will keep you from going and grabbing the steak or the ice cream, right? Or something else. This is so important for you. The water will make a difference for you, a major difference for you. So now, if you want to take a look at the situation, is how could you be at your peak without it? It says, what is the minimum amount of water you need to survive? You can lose 50% of your glucose. You can lose 50% of the fat in your body. You can lose 50% of your protein and still be alive. You can only lose 20% of your body's water. That's it. Now, what you really got to see is how many of you would like to lose weight? Let me see your hands there. Wow, most of you. Okay, then take a look at what water does losing weight on the next page. Here's a research study that was recently done on water and its effect on someone being able to lose weight. It says, incredible as it may seem, water is quite possibly the single most important catalyst in losing weight and keeping it off. Although most of it taken for granted, water may be the only true, quote, magic potion for permanent weight loss. And I'll just highlight three things for you. Studies have shown that a decrease in water intake will cause fat deposits to increase, while an increase in water intake can actually reduce fat deposits almost immediately. Second, one of the liver's primary functions, what's the liver got to do? Detoxify the body, cleanse it. One of its primary functions is to metabolize stored fat into usable energy for the body. But if the liver has to do some of the kidneys' work, it can't operate at full throttle. As a result, it metabolizes less fat. More fat remains stored in the body and weight loss stops. Third point, drinking water helps to maintain proper muscle tone by giving muscles their natural ability to contract and thereby preventing dehydration. It also helps to prevent the sagging skin that usually follows weight loss. Shrinking cells are supported by water, which plumps the skin and leaves it clear, healthy, and resilient. The last thing I put here is the body will not function properly without enough water, and it can't metabolize stored fat. Retained water shows up as excess weight. Why does your body retain water? Toxicity, but also because you finally get some in there, it hangs on to it. And here's the secret. When you don't drink water enough, you're not thirsty for it. So you actually don't think you need it. So for example, at Mastery, we give every single person, and you should do this in your life, their own water bottle, and we make sure that throughout the seminar that it's right there in their hands so you can sip on it slowly, not drink it all at one time throughout the time so you're getting that fluid. When I am tired, and I get it where I'm like stressed or tired, the first thing I do is take some deep what? And the second I do immediately, and sometimes even before the breaths, is I drink some water. You cannot believe where your fatigue goes when you just drink some water. You can't believe it. And the reason you won't notice it is because most of us don't drink water. What do most of us drink now? Soda pop. It's unbelievable. 50 million Cokes a day. That's how many are sold a day in the United States. 50 million per day. It's unbelievable, right? People just drink soda pop like it's going out of style. That is not water. That does not give you life. That makes your body have to work hard. You remember what I said? Okay. All right? Very, very important. So water content, what you want to do is you want to go to 70% water content. Right now, decide, for the next 10 days, are you willing to live by a diet of 70% water content, which means you want to now eat to cleanse. This is your new goal. I eat to cleanse, not to clog. And every time you go to eat, you got to ask yourself the question, is this going to cleanse me or clog me? If it's going to clog you, I suggest you either don't eat it or add some things that'll help to move it through your system. Is that reasonable? live foods, specifically you want to have a salad every meal, you want to have water in advance, you won't overeat so much, and you want to breathe. All those want to commit right now for the next 10 days to try this. Minimum 10, 30 ideal, rest of your life is what you really will do once you get hooked. All those want to make sure 70% of your diet is water content. Say I. Then turn to the person next to you, give them a hug and whisper in their ear, I'm a person who cleanses, not who eats to clog. Okay, let's go to step 3 then. Third step, you must give yourself the gift of aerobic power. The gift of aerobic power. Now, what is aerobic power? And I'm going to cover this very briefly because it's pretty fundamental. And we cover this in more detail, obviously, when you actually do it. But I just want to bring it to your attention. When I think about what's most important, I got to have oxygen, I got to have water, and notice I haven't gotten to food yet. I'm already going to aerobic power. The reason is it relates to my oxygen ability. Anaerobic means without oxygen. That's how most people live their life. That's how most people exercise. This was me in my exercise regimen in the past. Years ago, I would run, I wouldn't work out for several days. I'd be stressed because I knew I should have worked out. So I'd jump on the Stairmaster, push it up to level 5,000, right, straight up, and go on this thing as hard as I could go, my back out of joint, doing it like this, going as hard as I could possibly go, right, sweating like crazy. And I organized the thing so I could do it for 45 minutes. I walk away, sort of. I got pain in every part of my body. I wake up the next day, I couldn't move, and for some reason I didn't feel like exercising. Plus I was stressed, plus I had already had stress in my life. Adding that stress was not something I wanted to do. For some reason I linked pain to this. Right? And it didn't make me more healthy, did it? In fact, I got injured a lot of times because my idea of exercise was I wasn't exercising unless I was ready to spit up blood and broken through 25 walls. I've lifted unbelievable amounts of weights. I'd pushed through it all because I was a man's man, right? Stupid is what I was. Stupid. Because there's a difference between health and fitness. What was my whole focus on at that point? Fitness. So I was fit. I was bulky, right? All these muscles protruding. But I had zero energy level. Look at bodybuilders, and there's a few of them in this room. The fact is, you're a bodybuilder. It's one thing to be a bodybuilder. It's another thing to have endurance. There's all kinds of research done where you take just little, memey little vegetarian guys, office workers, holding up their little hands like this, and you take a bodybuilder and ask them to hold their hands out like this for 15 minutes. Can't do it. They lift all these huge weights. But what's happened is they just don't have it. Or ask them to go on sprints with you. Sprints they can do, ask them to go for a long distance run, they collapse. Because what's happened is these people do not have aerobic power. And what you need is health first, then the fitness. And the health comes from the aerobic base, not going out and killing yourself out there. If you're exercising with pain and you don't have an aerobic base, you're making a huge mistake. You must be exercising where you could carry on a conversation while you're doing it. This idea of no pain, no gain is the biggest lie in our culture, and it hurts people. That's why most people don't exercise, because we all avoid pain. Now, I will work out and lift weights and push myself through a level of discomfort to grow if I want, but that's not my primary workout anymore. I may not look so big anymore, but I'll tell you what, I got 10 times the energy and 10 times the health. And I'm not constricted and having things biting me on a regular basis. You know what I mean by that in terms of muscles? So let's put a couple notes here. What's the difference between fitness and health? Fitness is the physical ability to perform athletic activity, which we all want. But we want that after we build health. Health is the state in which all the systems of the body, your nervous system, your muscular system, your circulatory system, your digestive system, your lymphatics, your hormonal, are all working optimally. Optimally. Now, how can you achieve the optimum balance of health and fitness? The answer is you must train your metabolism. You must train your metabolism. People tell me all the time, well, my metabolism just doesn't allow me to burn any fat. You're right. Your metabolism doesn't burn fat because you're a sugar burner. The reason you're a sugar burner is you are constantly in a fight or flight mode. You're constantly in what we call an anaerobic state. How many know what I'm talking about here? Okay? So your adrenal glands are always pumping. You're stressing, you're responding to the traffic, the people around you, what's going on. Or you're feeding yourself sugar a lot of the time. So you've trained your body to burn sugar. Sugar has a fast burn, gives you a lot of energy, and then it's gone. And what happens now is you got no energy left over. People exercise in ways that make them anaerobic, which then magnifies the problems they have. Some people go out and start exercising and they get in worse shape. And so then they go, I don't want to exercise because I'm in worse shape when I exercise, I want to do nothing. I guess if I wasn't so stressed, it'd be okay if my life wasn't so busy. Because they're exercising inappropriately. You must build health first by aerobic training. So how do we do that? Turn the page and we'll show you. Number one, you train yourself aerobically, your lungs will operate much more efficiently, which means it'll take less energy to get more energy. Number two, your blood vessels become enlarged with aerobic exercise, and they're more pliable, and that reduces resistance to blood flow. Now, why would it be valuable to have the blood flow with less resistance? More oxygen, more energy, also less possibility of a heart problem, exactly. Third, your blood supply will increase, especially your red blood cells. Remember I told you earlier? The average man can increase his blood supply by a quart through aerobic exercise. 1 additional quart in your blood through aerobic training. 1 quart. That's like having this big chunk of energy and oxygen most people never dream of having. You're walking around with it. I personally think I have 2 quarts. 4, aerobic training makes a healthier body tissues because they're supplied with more oxygen, so the tissues are better. So your skin gets better, for example, right? It does wonders for your heart. It helps you eat better and digest better and eliminate waste better. When you're exercising, do you think that stimulates your colon and system better? Yes or no? If you're exercising aerobically, like for me, this seminar for me is not aerobic. It's aerobic most of the time, but I'm cranky, I'm talking, they're not getting enough oxygen. So at the end of this 3-day period, I can feel it. It's a very different thing, a 4-day period. So I'll go off and the first thing I'll do tomorrow is go on a nice, slow, simple jog, breathing and feeling. In between, I'll bounce on a rebounder that stimulates my lymph flow because I'm making huge anaerobic demands, and I've been doing the same with you to get this job done here. It's not like you never go anaerobic. It's just you know what to do to keep your body in balance, which is what health is all about. Does that make sense? Okay? And lastly, and I put these answers in for you, it'll help you sleep better. If you have sleep problems, go do this aerobic exercise. You'll have oxygen. One of the reasons people toss and turn all night is they don't have all the oxygen flowing through the body because they're stuck full of stuff they're clogged their body with. The body's working overtime trying to get oxygen to there. You're not efficient. And when you're sleeping, now you're really troubled because there's no lymph flow. So all those toxins are inside there and your cells are screaming. And that's why you toss and turn and try and move yourself to get some oxygen flow and move the lymph. If you don't sleep well at night, I guarantee you're toxic. And what you got to do is make sure you breathe, start cleansing, drink, start cleansing, and make sure you got some aerobic exercise, minimum 4 times a week. Some of you know a little bit about BMR, your basal metabolic rate, where your body basically gets trained, your metabolism gets trained. Aerobic exercise is the only thing we know that consistently will change your metabolic rate. So now, less effort causes you to metabolize more. Now let me tell you something that's interesting. If you're really overweight right now, you're a sugar burner, no question. You burn sugar, not fat. Number 2, when you go out to exercise, that skinny person for the same amount of exercise will burn more fat than you will. You go, they're just lucky. No, their metabolism is trained. But let me tell you the good news. You, with training, will burn much more than they will through time. You have to make this conversion, which takes time from burning sugar to burning fat. And it only happens when you continually exercise for a minimum of 20 minutes in aerobic rate. And when I say 20 minutes, here's what you do. You don't jump on and run. You have a minimum of 12 minutes of warm-up. This is the thing I had to really discipline myself to do because 1, I didn't want to take the time, and 2, it felt stupid to walk slowly or do whatever it is. But you're going to have to do a warm-up because you have to give the body the time to adjust, start mobilizing to burning fats. And if you do something fast, when we need fast energy, what source of energy do you go for, fat or sugar? Which one does the body do? Sugar, because it needs a quick burst. So you got to make sure you start your exercise slowly and gently, a 12-minute warm-up. Then you go for your 20 minutes or more of aerobic, right? Then you go beyond that and you have a warm down of 10 to 12 minutes. Because some people exercise like crazy and then they stop. And what happens is the blood pools in your muscles and creates more toxicity in there. So you got to make sure that you have a chance to get the toxicity out. How do you do that? You lower your intensity and you breathe. Maybe a good time to do your diaphragmatic breaths, and you walk and you move and you warm down. How many are willing to commit for the next 10 days, that you'll have 5 days of some form of aerobic movement in your body that lasts more than 30 minutes? Say aye. Great, then hug the person next to you and whisper in their ear, I have aerobic power. Let's go to the 4th one. You want to give yourself the gift of maximum nourishment. Maximum nourishment. Notice I didn't say maximum amount of food. maximum nourishment. I didn't say the maximum super big gulp, right? Maximum nourishment. I'm going to give you 7 quick principles here, some of which I hope you're familiar with. If you're not, I'll make them clear real quick. Now, let's think for a second. Years ago, we were taught that to make sure you had plenty of energy in your day, you used to start your morning with a big, heavy-duty, hearty what? Breakfast. Now, let me ask you a question. You stick in bacon, eggs, right? Some coffee, some toast, some jelly, some hash browns, some Jimmy Dean sausage. You stick all that in your stomach. Do you think that suddenly you have this burst of energy? Is that what happens, yes or no? Why do people look for coffee at 10 o'clock in the morning like clockwork? 1, because they're taught to, but number 2, because most people's blood sugar is through the floor, right? Who taught us we should start our morning with a big breakfast? Adele Davis, who died of bone cancer. Adele Davis, you know all those nutrition books? Potted Generation? Bone cancer. Do you know how rotten your bloodstream has to be to rot out your bones? Yep, have yourself a big breakfast and join Adele. I want to tell you something. Let's step into my common sense corner over here. Step over. Now, over here, you and I, we can be common sense now, outside our conditioning. Common sense. The word breakfast means to break a fast, because hopefully you weren't eating while you were sleeping, although some have managed to pull this off. Okay? Some have food nearby. In the middle of the night, they wake up and eat something, you know? So if you wanted to break a fast, how many of you have ever fasted in your life? Raise your hand. Gone on a fast, cleanse your body. Say, I. If you had a fast and then you broke the fast by eating bacon or eggs, you get the idea, don't you? What would happen? You get sick as a dog. It would jolt your system so bad because the body's clean now. Your body go crazy. You get sick. So you're sleeping all night, which should be fasting, so the body can cleanse itself. It's not trying to digest things, but that's not what most people do. Most people have eaten in a way where the body's been digesting all night long with no rest, and now the first thing in the morning you wake up, you slam more into it. Makes zero common sense. How many would agree with that? Say aye. So what would make common sense for us to have in the morning? The answer is something alive, okay? You want to give your body a cleansing time. I'm telling you, of all the things I did to create more energy, no question, breathing and water made a huge difference. The next biggest difference by far changed my energy level like that. And it'll change yours too. You want to break your fast with what? Fresh juice until when? Till noon. Because it'll give you live enzymes, energy. Because the best juice is something you just made right there. I know that's not always possible, and now today, juicing has become a big thing. There are all these infomercials with juices and so forth. Get a juicer. You say, what kind? There are centrifugal juicers, but the best juicers are like the Juice Man's got a great one, or the Champion juicer, some of you are familiar with, and you can get them at a reasonable price. They're well worth it. You went to this whole seminar and everything else, you must have a juicer at home. All those who want to try this till noon, allowing your body to cleanse for the next 10 days or more, say aye. Great, let's go to the next principle. Turn back a page, we'll look at the principle. Second principle is you want to properly combine your foods. You want to properly combine your foods for maximum nourishment and energy. You want to eat one concentrated food at a meal. You don't want to combine carbohydrates and proteins at the same meal. Now, what the heck does that mean? Very simple. Think about this for a moment. This is fundamental biochemistry, and I know some nutritionists will go crazy here, but this is the facts. Now, let me ask you a question. You have something like a baked potato and a steak. What happens? You got a baked potato, which is what? And a steak, which is what? And you put them in the body at the same time. You get acid and alkaline digestive juices being secreted simultaneously. Anyone remember basic chemistry? What happens when you take acid and alkaline, you put them together? What do? They neutralize each other. But the food has to be digested. So what happens? More alkaline, more acid. Hydrochloric acid, more Tylenol, everything going like crazy. And guess what happens? They neutralize again. And this happens over and over again. And every time you do this, your body uses an immense amount of nerve what? Energy. And it's not working. So guess what happens? The protein putrefies and the carbohydrate ferments. Have you ever had like a meal and then had maybe like some watermelon for dessert? Watermelon is a fruit. Fruit goes right through the stomach, right into the small intestine, because it's mostly water. It does not stay in that area. If it stays in that area, it instantly ferments. You can't have any food in the stomach or you got fruit fermenting. Ever had a big meal, had a piece of watermelon, and then burping it back up here, tasting it again the rest of the night? Anybody had this experience, yes or no? Of course you have. That's why fruit has to be on an empty stomach, because it combines with nothing else. And proteins and carbohydrates need to be eaten separately as a primary source of your meal. You're saying, what are you saying? I'm saying this is how your body actually works, unlike how you've been taught culturally to eat. So if you're going to have meat, have a big salad with it, have some steamed vegetables, but don't have a big baked potato, bread, and rice with it, because then what you've done is you've made a digestive process that normally takes 3.5 hours, will now be 11 hours, 12, 13, 14, 9, depending upon the person. So you go to sleep at night and have that meal, and while you're sleeping all night long, your body's working like crazy, trying to break down this food, usurping your nerve energy. The next biggest thing besides fruit in the morning gave me energy was releasing my body from the burden of trying to digest indigestible items, because they were no longer able to be digested because the digestive juices were in conflict. How many follow? And by the way, step into my common sense corner here. Look at nature. In nature, animals have one focused food, concentrated food. When you eat 8 million different foods, you know what it does? It stimulates you to overeat because you never get bored with it. So food becomes recreation instead of nutrition. But you come to Common Sense Corner and you look out at nature, and we all go to Africa and watch. We see this lion come down and boom, take down a zebra. It's a lion's based to do. Its body's designed for that. But does the lion take down a zebra and then have a baked potato with it? No. Okay? Because what happens is that body is not designed for that. You don't see miscombinations with animals. Animals' bodies are designed with a primary food. So, think of this as a really simple way of thinking about this. Eat one concentrated food at a meal. Concentrated, to give you a clue, means a food that has very little water or what? Contents. Not much water in it. So, for example, is steak an example of a concentrated food? Yes or no? Is rice a concentrated food? Yes. So think about what it is. Is a baked potato concentrated food? So what you can do is you're going to have potatoes or rice, or ideally just potatoes, and have a couple big potatoes, a huge salad, some steamed vegetables. You got a great meal there. If you're going to have some kind of fish, then have the fish and have a big salad and some steamed vegetables. The steamed vegetables and salad help you to digest the rest. It moves it through the system. But you don't want to have the two simultaneously. Does that mean, well, how am I supposed to have a sandwich anymore? I mean, that means if I stick in there with that bread and some meat, it's not going to combine. You're absolutely right. What do I do? You have an avocado sandwich, lettuce and tomato and avocado. You go, oh my God, are you kidding? I'm not going to the Sprouts, buddy. I mean, I just came to a seminar for 3 days here. Okay? You must, I repeat, you must properly combine your food. And the way you do this is, it sounds insane. Like a lot of things I'm telling you, when I first started learning them, I thought there's no way I can do this. But you know what? I'm going to try it for 30 days. And that's why I live this way still. Because I'm trying to tell you what it would smell like to smell a rose, and you've never smelled a rose before, some of you. Most of you. When you start feeling this good, you will never go back. You go, forget that. That old thing there, what I thought was rich, what I thought was rewarding, compared to how I feel. And what happens is you start to love these other foods, because not only do they start tasting good to you, but you also feel the impact they have on your life. So I'm not asking you to commit for the rest of your life. I'm saying do this for 30 days, minimum of 10. How many want to combine your foods and just judge by results? All the research is here, but judge by results and see what it does to your energy level. How many want to try this? Say aye. So what you're agreeing to is one concentrated food of the meal, the rest of it water content food. Okay, let's go to the next. Oh, by the way, next page gives you a food combining chart on what's a carbohydrate, what's a non-starchy vegetable, what's fruit, what goes together. It makes it real simple. You need to eat comfortable amounts of food to maximize your energy. Remember what I said before, comfortable amounts of food. Because if you eat more than your body can take, two things happen. You store fat, but also you start changing your blood sugar. And I put some notes in there. It says, see what page, to give you some support. Don't eat when you're stressed. Why? The minute you are stressed, you stop the normal secretion of digestive enzymes. So now whatever you eat when you're stressed is going to ferment, right, or putrefy. It's basically going to rot in your system. And that's where gas comes from, in case you're interested. Eat organic food whenever possible, and do not eat condensed foods, especially intense animal proteins, before retiring. If you're going to eat animal proteins, do it in the middle of the day where your body has a chance to break it down and digest it, because you go to sleep and your metabolism slows down, and all that waste and that toxicity stays in your body. It's the worst time to eat late at night, especially animal products.
This session continues on the next CD.